Welcome to the Athens Public Library. Tonight we have a very special world traveler, Alex Ross, who has visited over 30 countries in a very unique way, which I will not divulge. I will let her explain this very wonderful new way to travel. And this program is brought to you by the Friends of the Athens Public Library.
Thanks for coming. I just want to tell you about myself. I'm an Army brat. So I was a baby in Japan. I was a third grader in France, fourth and fifth grade in Germany. And then I traveled again in my 20s. I picked grapes in France, went to India, Morocco, Amsterdam, England, Scotland, Wales, Spain, Italy, Greece. But I didn't have a chance to travel again until 2013, except for the Caribbean. I wanted to travel again because I didn't get to China, and I almost chickened out of going to Asia. I need to thank the Athens Time Exchange for two of their members on a hike telling me about Couchsurfing. Now, Couchsurfing is an internet hospitality group, and it costs $5 to join once, and it's growing by leaps and bounds. What you do is make a profile, post a picture of yourself, give your philosophy, your mission, your interests, movies you like, books you like, where you've been. When someone reads your profile, they have an idea what you're like. So you choose where you want to go, and then you just scroll through all the people that live there that would be amenable to having someone sleep on their couch. Although many times it was a bed, or sometimes people left. Often they left me the keys. It was incredible. They picked me up. They were so hospitable. And it was so touching. When I think of traveling alone, staying in a hotel room alone, it sounds very depressing. But this was an ecstatic experience for me. And I made so many friends. I live in Nelsonville, and it takes years to make a friend or two. But with Couchsurfing, you can make new friends every week. And they're people that are interesting, they want to practice their English, and they're not always natives of the country that you're visiting. My plan, since I'd never been there, was to start in Portugal, which I heard was cheaper, and the food was better than in Italy. So that was enough for me to go to Portugal. My first host had a family visit, so they had to renege. But this other couple took me on, and they're nudists. And they kept telling me, because I was emailing from Nelsonville, Ohio, to people in Sweden and France and Spain for places to stay. He kept saying, "You do realize we're nudists." I'd been to rainbow gatherings. I didn't have a problem. It was funny that they would come home from work, take off their pants and sit down in front of the computer. It's a lifestyle. My first hosts were in the Portuguese Air Force as dog handlers. And while I was there, there was a national holiday and they had to go away as part of their duties. So they handed me over to another naturalist, nudist, but he kept his clothes on. And you'll see them again at the end of my trip. I really wanted to revisit people that I'd seen in the beginning at the end, but I couldn't always do it. I'm just a stickler for this kind of architecture all over Europe, men holding up buildings. The trees are fantastic. This is outside the Prado in Spain. I took a bus to Spain. That's the Prado. Here's my second hostess. She was from Colombia, and that's her son, Camilo, mi amor, and they had a cat. And Madrid is terribly hot, and she had terrible problems with English, but she was anxious to try. Like, she had difficulty with because. Very sweet woman. Now I'm in Bilbao, Spain. I wanted to go to Bilbao, to the Getty Museum. And this woman on the left, my hostess, was a yoga teacher with her mother, showing me the sights of Bilbao. This is the Getty Museum with a big cat covered with flowers. Then I went to France, the south of France, Aix-en-Provence. And the woman on the right, she's a paleontologist, an anthropologist, way back. And she was so anxious to take her two children, the boy and the girl in front of her, to Vesuvius. But popular places, it's hard to find hosts. Paris, London, it's not easy. In fact, I went to my recent 50th high school reunion, and I couch-surfed about 30 people before I found a host. But I found wonderful people. This is her lover and his boys. And while I was there, they went camping. She said, stay 6 months. Now I'm in Marseille. I had an idea of Marseille. I still have the idea. I've been to Marseille, and it's not at all like my idea of Marseille. This woman was from Chile. She spoke no English, only French. So it's a little bit of a workout, but she was a tour operator. So she could tell me where to go. And that's a public toilet in Marseille on the beach. Some people in France, where I went into the first grade when I was 7 or 8, and we were writing with pen and ink, and my teacher was a communist that we found out at the end that objected to the American military occupying France 10 years after the war. Anyway, the hostess's husband was having his 60th birthday party, and this is his daughter roasting a lamb, and they dress up for their parties. This gentleman, those are his wife's nieces and nephews. He married an Irish woman. You know, the French know how to have a party. There he is with a wig with his 2 daughters. And one of his nieces was in the opening events of the Olympics, one of the 700 dancers. Now I'm in Strasbourg, and I saw this animal in the river. This is a pigeon that was living on the balcony of my next hostess. Nobody likes pigeons, but she couldn't bring herself to do anything about it. This is her home on the Place Zurich. And this is her and her son, Aimé, an aspiring actor. And I got so close to this woman in just a couple of days. It was intense. Then I went to Frankfurt, where I lived for 2 years, and see how progressive they are. Recycling, taxis, tourism. And they have this tradition of putting locks on bridges, lovers, and throwing the key in the water. This is Goethe by Andy Warhol. Of course, I went to museums everywhere I went. And here's some wild rabbits. This is my host in Frankfurt. I was worried because he was a 60-year-old man. But there were no problems. I got there, and it's very stressful until you finally find your host. There was a rainstorm, there was a highway, I didn't know where I was going, I didn't know how to use the phones with the international dialing, and I didn't have a phone because you needed kind of a different phone for every country. But anyway, his girlfriend was there, and this is a host. He's disabled, so he stays at home, sells things on the computer all night, and is addicted to having couch surfers. He had a Chinese girl, he said, stayed with him 9 months. He couldn't get rid of her. And after I left, some Russian girls were coming that were volunteering to work with children. He says, why don't they do this in Russia? Being from Poland, he told me I should go to the concentration camp because I was planning to go to Krakow. But I just could not make myself do it. He said, people travel from far away, you should do it, but I couldn't. Now I'm in Denmark. This woman was raised in Australia. Her English was perfect. Her parents were alcoholics, and she dealt with the street people of Athens. I think we would say Odense. This is the town of Hans Christian Andersen. And this is a tree where children give up their pacifiers. They can visit them, but it's a little rite of passage. The art is so magnificent in all these places. And this is one of the daily Hans Christian Andersen shows that they put on. In Europe, they have a lot of open museums. They They bring old houses from all over the country, and I've been to many of them. This was a concert on original instruments. Now I'm in Copenhagen, and this woman and I rented a bike. We went all over. We saw the Little Mermaid. This is Christiana. It was a military complex that in the 60s or 70s was closed down, and the hippies started squatting there. And now it's kind of a free city and tourist attraction. And there we are at the Tivoli Gardens, enjoying a concert. That's a huge amusement park, very old. And these birds, I saw them all over Europe. I've never seen them in the States. I love the art museums. This woman I met on the train, she said, come and visit me, so I did. I thought I was a hoarder. She's a real hoarder, but a lovely, sweet woman. Now I'm in Norway. This woman works at the Constitution Hall. There's a little museum. It's where the Norwegians wrote their constitution, and they were about to celebrate their big anniversary. And this is a large park in Oslo. One man did all these sculptures. Of course, there's the Nobel Peace Museum, another open-air museum. Now I'm in Sweden, and this was the only real big problem I had with the Couchsurfer situation. This reporter came to interview this woman. She had called it off because, you know, I got involved with these lovely places in France. I couldn't drag myself away, so I kept delaying a little bit. She said, you don't know what you want. But then she let me come anyway. She had had a couple who got up 4 times during the night, made love, took a shower, and even though she's hard of hearing, they woke her up 4 times. I didn't do anything like that. There was a German man who insisted she cook for him. I didn't insist on anything, but it was a beautiful place, and I appreciated it, but I don't think she's having couch surfers anymore. And this is from a tree, an art exhibit of Yoko Ono's there in Sweden. You could add your message to the tree. Oh, I love art. This is a big ship that sank on its maiden voyage, and it's a big tourist draw. They pulled it out and reconstructed it. Facebook is international. I think that's a beautiful sight, even though it's an insult. Here's a reindeer. That woman made minced reindeer while I was there. I have a terror of high places, and they have some mighty long escalators in Europe, especially in the subways. But they have some very nice bathrooms. Now, I'm in St. Petersburg. My hostess didn't mention that she was pregnant. She now has a little boy, Ivan. She met me at the metro, and there were all these women selling fruits and flowers and vegetables outside the metro. Here's another St. Petersburg hostess, Olga. And we are at a big supermarket. I'm buying shoes. My shoes have worn out. She's very glamorous. And I went to see Swan Lake. She taught me how to say, excuse me, where's the Mariinsky Theater? Пожалуйста, где Teatro Mariinsky? This is out of sequence, but near the end in January, I was in Kuala Lumpur. This was a 9-month visit. And this is a Hindu festival. When I was in India in 73 or 76, I thought of having my head shaved. I didn't do it, but this time I did it. I regretted it, but okay, this is Russia. The European women are into those shoes. This is the metro, and you say St. Petersburg, it was Petrograd, Leningrad, and again, it's St. Petersburg. Here's another hostess, the town of Pushkin. And this is a girl, a milkmaid who spilled her milk. Now, the woman who was pregnant in St. Petersburg, this is her English teacher. We went to the Hermitage to look at all the art, and he asked me to marry him. He's been 30 years my junior. This is a little wedding ceremony at one of these open-air museums. They had a fire and so many icons I could show you, but I won't. Now, sometimes people that you haven't connected with will see your request, and they'll send you an invitation, because you can filter for age, gender, English speaking, whether they've been verified or vouched on Couchsurfing. And that's what I usually did. But I got this invitation out of the blue to come to Veliki Novgorod. So I went, and these were all 20-something people. They had a hookah party with fruit-flavored tobacco. It was a lot of fun. And Svetlana here spoke no English, but she had a computer with a program that translated it. So there were these white plums, and it translated white discharge, because plumbing, drainage. Now I'm in Moscow, and this is Nata, and there was a big couch surfing gathering with a volleyball game between the Muscovites and the others. This looks like Putin, and I think he makes a lot of money on Red Square getting his picture taken. I snuck a picture, but... Okay, this is back in Moscow again. And you see they eat these large melons. The food is very interesting. They're very into dairy. That's her son, a techie. And of course I wanted to see a samovar. I'm crazy about samovars, but they use coal to burn them. Can you read that? Yes? This is in Kazan. My sister Amy, we found out we had an ancestor, she made a movie about it, who died in Kazan during the First World War. So I went to Kazan to try and find out some stuff about it, but Kazan was just bursting. My host, he is a Jewish lawyer, his son, wife, and she had a name that sounds kind of Muslim, Ashminova. They were so wonderful. My maiden name was Abercrombie. And the Portuguese people that I first stayed with, he had an Abercrombie mania. Everything he wore was Abercrombie. So I couldn't resist the picture. This is Nicholas, who was the Tsar who was executed. This was a powerful sculpture museum. These are all faces. Indicates what went on. You see Lenin, then Clyburn had 50 pianos at home. And I think you see Stalin in this picture. The wonderful Stalin. I love these art museums. And my last host in Moscow, this is Gregory. Gregory never wore diapers. He would squirm, he would let his mother know, and she would put him somewhere appropriate. So I thought that was very advanced. Nobody ever had a dryer. They had a pulley system. Only in Ireland did I see a dryer, because nothing would dry in Ireland without a dryer. This is Gregory's sister, and I can a little bit read the Cyrillic alphabet, so I would read her these children's books. I didn't know what I was saying, and I'm not sure if she did either, but she was quite attentive. You see things abroad you don't see around here. Oh, I was arrested briefly. I overstayed my visa. I thought a month was 31 days, but it was 30 days. My train left at 6 p.m. from Moscow, but didn't get to Estonia till 4 a.m. So the police arrested me. I had to pay $20. And now I'm in Estonia. Back in the 50s, you couldn't go to Eastern Europe. So I wanted to see the Russian influence. And it's very great. The Russians deported people because Eastern Europe had a higher standard of living. This is one of the Holocaust museums, suitcases of people. This is another hostess I had in the capital of Estonia, Svetlana. Her son goes to a Russian school. He does not speak Estonian. You can get along perfectly well speaking only Russian. Now, I'm in the next country, Latvia, Riga. Wonderful woman. You know, I thought people in Eastern Europe, they would be poor, they would be dependent on me for food to eat. She had a car, she had a big house, good job. Wonderful. This is Ivan the Terrible. I saw him in many museums. This is a dress of condoms in a medical museum. There is a street of Art Deco. I just couldn't get enough of it. This is another hostess in Riga, Brigitte. Now, she has met men on the internet, and they're always trying to borrow money. It's pretty funny. She's a grandmother. She had a granddaughter living with her. She gave me apples. Apples are everywhere. And then I was in Lithuania. This is the family I stayed with. And he told me about going with his father to Siberia to collect his grandfather's bones. I went to a KGB prison. I went to a bunker in Latvia that the Soviets had built. Huge thing, and really there was not enough fuel to keep it open more than a week if there had been a catastrophe. Now I'm in Poland. Because of the producers, I saw the city of Białystok. I thought, I'll go to Białystok. And this young girl said, oh, my mother would love to host you. So I went there, and her mother did group therapy for cancer survivors, women. Now we're in Warsaw, and he's drumming up business. And this is Krakow. This is where I could have gone to Auschwitz, but instead I went to Schindler's factory, and that was huge. And this is my hostess in Krakow, Nina. Her real name is Carolina. She moved to Edinburgh. She had a white apartment, a white cat. Everything was white. Now I'm in Budapest. This woman, the room I stayed with, sometimes she rented it out to Airbnb. And she worked for advertising, she worked in movies, and she had a deux chevaux, one of those old Peugeots that they don't make anymore, but she was part of a public interest group, so they would go to conferences of deux chevaux people. And there's all this interesting public art everywhere. That's the river that separates Buda and Pest, and kind of a Peter Pan type sprite. That's Ronald Reagan. Another of these terrifying escalators down to the subway. I went to Croatia, Zagreb, and that's where I lost my Visa card. Oh, I don't know how it happened, but I had to call America. And this is my hostess out in the country. She only spoke French. She married a Croatian man. He died a few months before. She had a cat, but she's drowned kittens, and showed me where they kept the pigs in this room where they never saw sunlight. And we walked up the hill, visited her husband's grave, but she took me out for my birthday because I had a very lonely birthday in Dubrovnik. I didn't find a host, so I stayed in a youth hostel for a couple of days. This is a filmmaker in Zagreb named Zouk, and he's been to India since. This was a famous slur during the wars. A round-trip ticket to Zagreb from Budapest was cheaper than one way, so I went back to Budapest. And here's the House of Terrors. I went back and stayed again with my lovely hostess with the deux chevaux. Terror. And now we're in Vienna. As in the Middle Ages, so in the Third Reich. I never heard of this artist, Egon Schiele. My hostess in Vienna, a Christ-like figure in a museum, a beggar. You don't see that in this country. And now we're in Prague. These are street performers. This young man immolated himself during the Velvet Revolution, and from his hospital bed before he died, he asked his followers not to do the same thing, but 9 of them did. This is my hostess. She left a key to her flat in a glass jar under the steps, and I just had directions from the subway where to go. People are so trusting. Here's the Museum of Communism. Now I'm in BRNO. It's maybe the Czech Republic or Slovenia, Slovakia. This is Bratislava. I got so close to that girl. These are 2 fellows who live together with their friend. They both have the same name. This is my host in Kosice. And this fellow here, that one, he's a German hiker, married to a Ukrainian woman. And I said, oh, I heard you climb Mount Everest. There's a lot of human waste everywhere. He said, you should see the dead bodies. He told me I would get sick in Ukraine, but I didn't, thank goodness. And the young man had a PhD, but it was such a dead end in his country. He was applying to immigrate to Australia, but he was a half a point away on his English literacy, so he was going to try again. And I saw so many gypsies in that region. It made me afraid of Romania, but Romania never ran into gypsies. They're everywhere else. You don't see this kind of inventive art in the United States, I don't think. This is one of those bicycle taverns. You rent it, you have a party, and you just go up and down the streets. I'm in Kiev now. Now, these people are Ukrainians, but they speak Russian at home. The woman asked her husband, she said, I feel like I'm married to 2 different people, the one who speaks Ukrainian, the one who speaks Russian. And I actually stayed with her mother, who spoke no English whatsoever, which was interesting. And she took me into town. I went to Kiev because of the Great Gate of Kiev. Now, the gate is 1,000 years old. This is not the original, but this is where it was. And here's another open-air museum in Kiev. And another hostess in Kiev. And this is Ludmila. She did not host me, but we met. She took me out to lunch and then to a balalaika concert. This guy was just in the audience. And then I went to Odessa. This is an American girl working on her PhD, interviewing people in the countryside. And they all feel sorry for her because she's an old maid at 29. These are the Potemkin steps, where the baby carriage in that old silent rolls down. And a very large balalaika. Now I'm in Moldova. This is a German man who, she was advertising for a roommate who spoke German. Well, they fell in love, and while I was there, they flew to Denmark to get married, left me in their apartment. This is a train. Sleepers like we don't have anymore. And I'm in Romania now in front of a museum. I went to that biggest building in the world that Ceausescu built, and he didn't even live there. And they redid the staircase 3 times because he didn't want to have to look down while he was making his grand entrance. This is my hostess. She's a Viennese chef a private chef for a wealthy Romanian lawyer, but the mother would tell them to stop eating when she felt they'd had enough. And she would make these wonderful desserts. The mother wouldn't let them eat them. She also cooked for the other help, and she left that job. She was bringing leftovers, most delicious leftovers all the time. It was here that I left my camera in a bar, so I didn't see it, and I still owe her money. She mailed it to me in Turkey, so I don't have any more pictures of Romania, but this is a little bit before I lost my camera. Here's another woman I met on Couchsurfing. We got together for a meal. She helped me get tickets to see Don Quixote, the ballet. Now I'm in Turkey. This is an American girl, married a Spanish guy who was always flying, but she's back in California now. And these are two Turkish sisters that I stayed with. And they worked right at Taksim Square, where they had big demonstrations before all the other stuff came up. And this is museum stuff in Istanbul, which is such a huge country. They urged me not to lose my courage and go to Asia. I was kind of running out of time, so I did fly to Asia. You would think a Muslim country would not celebrate the holidays, but I got there right around Christmas. My hostess lived in a rooming house. She was gone. I had directions. I moved into her room. And in Asia, you don't have toilet paper with the toilets. You have water, a nozzle. So I think it's very clean, but it's a little bit different. And here's a public advertisement against smoking. This is in Jakarta. What a huge city. I never saw a tricycle before. This is another hostess. She lived in a rooming house. She slept on the floor and let me sleep on the bed. I was a bit of a celebrity when I went to places, people wanting to get my picture taken with them. This is more of an Asian toilet. The Turkish sisters had a large apartment from their parents where they grew up, and it had two kinds of toilets. Luckily, one liked one kind, one liked the other. This is my last-minute hostess in Yogyakarta. And she had a lovely house she designed herself. And this was my second hostess. As you see, she's Chinese. There's a lot of, this is Indonesia and Jakarta. She has a little boy. She took me to the palace where they have these instruments. But she was so hip to permaculture. Everything is so surprising. We went to art things together. This is around Surabaya. That's my host and his son. He had a travel agency, and I was afraid he was going to try and sell me a trip. But they were so nice. Another girl responded. She had never met an English person face-to-face before. She worked in a bridal shop and just met us in town and spoke a little bit. This guy said he was going to college for tourism, and he arranged for me to go up to this volcano, but I think he was really making money off of Couchsurfing. And I put what you do after you stay, you give a reference, positive or negative. And I gave him a neutral and I just said, I had a feeling that I was being played. And some Indian people who had stayed wrote to me and said they had the same feeling. And good for me to express that. But it was like, you come to the country and you go around the rice paddies and you eat the special candy and blah, blah. Well, I went to Bali. I won't tell you what a nightmare ride it was on a bus all night where you can't move and you're sitting next to a smoker. But I got there, and in contrast to Java, which is Muslim, Bali is Hindu. And you see these in front of every store. This is a monument. There was a big explosion in the 80s perhaps, and I really wasn't aware of it, and it took quite a while to figure out that this was how they wrote the United States, and those were the people who killed. People from all over were killed. Well, it's such fun to travel. This is a monkey park. Monkeys galore. And a couple of times students would stop me and say, oh, could we interview you for our class? It's just, I have thousands of pictures of Buddhas reclining in every other way. This is a little tree of washed up Zori. This is a very sweet guy in Denpasar. He met me and drove me on his motorcycle. Everybody gets around on a motorcycle. I bought a motorcycle recently. And took me at 4 in the morning to get my flight to Kuala Lumpur. And this is a wedding party. I have a lot of pictures of weddings that were just random going on in the summer. You can get fish to clean up your feet for a price. This is my hostess in Kuala Lumpur. She was Chinese. And she had, that's where I had my head shaved, and she had done it too. And the train to Thailand. And this girl in Bangkok, I didn't find a host, but I went to a hostel, and I met this girl. I assumed she was Japanese, but she was Chinese, and the prices were much cheaper in Thailand than in China. And she bought these crazy sunglasses, said, no, I look like stupid Japanese girl. And this is a woman at a shopping center with an elegantly dyed rabbit. Kuala Lumpur is an unbelievable city. And here's another hostel. I was bitten by dogs one night coming back from a couchsurfing gathering. So I had to take tetanus. These are Buddhist monks waiting for the train. They have their own special area to wait. Good luck, if a sign would do it for you. This is Chiang Mai, Thailand. And of course, I had to go to an elephant park, and they train these animals for 3 months to make pictures of trees. There I am, after my haircut, riding an elephant, hugging a tiger. This is a famous durian fruit. It smells, but they love it. They make ice cream of it. Now I'm in Burma, Myanmar, and I left my heart there. It's such a magical place. I was very afraid because I heard there was one ATM in the whole country. I was ironing my few dollar bills. I had brought like $1,000 cash, but when I lost my Visa card, I started spending that money, and I was so afraid that I would just have no money. But it worked out. They're not even allowed to have their own family stay with them without notifying the government. So there was no couch surfing there, but $9 a night, you could find a place. Here's my favorite pick-me-up, fresh sugarcane juice with ginger in it, which is all over India. Well, I had a round-trip ticket from Lisbon, so I went on Skyscanner, and the cheapest flight back to Europe was to Milan. And this Polish woman, Agnes, put me up one night in Milan, and we went to an art exhibit of Bob Dylan. And then out of the blue, I got an invitation to go to this commune, couchsurfing commune, in a little town next to the on a mountain next to the castle. He had a haircut, but they had a free store. I helped myself to some clothes because I was back in the cold weather again. And then I went to Dijon, France, because I love mustard, And they were having a little demonstration because Holland was in town. This was my hostess. She was not French, she was Italian, but we spoke in French. And I revisited where I stayed as a child in Nancy, France, and this is one of the streets named in honor of someone who was shot by the Nazis. And here are my nudist couchsurfing hosts. I went back to Lisbon, and they had had a child in the meantime. Santiago. I stopped in Ireland, and this French woman with her 2 little girls took me in outside of Dublin. And then I was back in New York, where things were happening. And that's my couch surfing trip. 9 months, 50 people, 30 countries, just magnificent. I recommend it.
Thank you.
I didn't get to China, Vietnam, Cambodia. You know, the more you travel, the more you want to travel. You hear about this place and that place. And of course, I thought I would be able to revisit everybody in Europe that I had visited on the way over, but I just kind of ran out.
What is Skyscanner? You mentioned that for getting back from...
Yeah, it's just a website to see cheap flights.
Uh-huh.
Like the New York Times had something, which I got my flight to Asia. You pay a certain price, and these people that are adept at all these sites will fund you the cheapest way to go, and then they get a little bonus for that. But unfortunately, I went sightseeing in Istanbul, and by the time I got back, the great price that they had was already gone.
So that's a good one to use, though, right?
Yeah.
To get around?
Skyscanner.
Okay.
What do you know about China or anticipate?
I hear the air is unbreathable. I do have a little tape. I'm trying to learn a little bit of Mandarin.
Wow.
I know 12 and 2.
How many languages do you know just a little bit?
Well, French and German I can get around. Spanish, a little Arabic. Have y'all traveled?
Going to Italy next month.
Oh! I was looking for Abercrombies in Scotland, but they were all underground. Are you going to Rome?
We're going to Florence, Rome, and Venice.
Excellent. Go to the Pitti Palace. I didn't get there. And I was
Where
through
is
Florence,
that?
in
Is that
Florence.
In Florence, okay.
Of course, the Uffizi Palace
Right.
with the Sistine Chapel. But I had about a 4-hour layover. But I had all this luggage, of course.
Yeah.
And they wanted €5 a bag. I couldn't see it. But you know, your ideas about money change. It takes a lot of money to get there. I actually, I get Social Security now, and my balance, I figure I get $30-some a day to live on. And I didn't really go beyond it. Before I knew about couch surfing, I thought, I'm going to be spending $70 a day anyway,
Right.
if I'm lucky. I did fly in Scandinavia because I didn't have a lot of time to get between the countries.
Right.
But I seldom went to cafes. I went to supermarkets.
Oh, okay.
I always wanted to arrive with food.
Mhm.
And then one of my hostess, Olga, in St. Petersburg, she said, there's an unwritten couch surfing rule. When you put food in the refrigerator, you leave it there. But I said, then I would go to my next hostess with nothing. I have 5 cats in a house. That's my problem. I have to find a solution, and then I'm going to go back to Asia. I'm so glad they urged me not to give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And you still stay in contact with some of those people?
Yes, I kept a blog. Somebody put it online for me, a friend. And I would send it to everyone that I'd already stayed with. A couple of people asked me to delete things that I said about them, so I did. Some people want to friend you, and then it's easier to stay in touch than going through all your hundreds of messages. And some people never respond and you not only have a certain thing about what you're planning to do, but explain why you would like to meet this person. So it shows that you have read their profile, you share things in common. They've traveled somewhere I want to go, I want to find out from you. It's wonderful, it's a miracle. I was sitting in the middle of the French countryside, drinking wine with these people and thinking, I am so blessed. I am blessed to be here.
So did you do Airbnb at all?
No,
Uh-huh, okay.
I did hostels
Uh-huh.
a few places in Ukraine.
Fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
where you couldn't-
Bangkok. But those are good too. They're cheap.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of travelers and you find out what's what. I didn't tell you about going to Sarajevo. There was another museum about Srebrenica, which is devastating. You watch videotapes of people going to their deaths. I was in Bosnia Herzegovina for about 10 minutes on the bus. And I was in Kosovo, all these strange monies. I got to Prague late at night, and I didn't realize they weren't on the euro.
Oh.
And, you can sneak on the subway, but if you get caught, you get fined. So I had to find a money changer, and it was touch and go for a while, but I survived.
It sounds like you didn't have to plan a lot ahead of time. You were able to just figure things out on the fly. Is that kind of true?
Well, it was so helpful when people had internet access. I took my tablet,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is kind of hard to use, hard to type on, this and that. And I went to McDonald's more than I cared to because they usually had internet access.
Yeah.
So there was always a terrible time before you found the person. Like when I got to Estonia, in her picture, she was a blonde with a big smile. And I saw this dark-haired lady looking around, and I was looking around. Finally, we found each other. She stopped bleaching her hair like I did.
How'd you stay light? So you could.
I have
get-
trouble packing light. In fact, I had a bag. I have friends in New York that I stayed with. I took the Chinese bus for $50 to New York City, Chinatown.
Uh-huh.
It left at midnight, and I could see I could not move with what I had. And my friends lent me something that I could pull. It made all the difference.
So you just had one suitcase?
I had a little backpack, and I had another bag. You buy food, you want to
Sure.
buy things. And I lost hats, I lost umbrellas. Travel, don't wait. As soon as I find my passport again. As soon as I got home, I lost it in my house. got 5. I didn't see this at the county fair. Looking at the kitchen.
left them on somebody else's.